Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Freak Show. I'm your host, Cinder Soleil. And we are here, indeed, at the Freak Show tent because we got freaks to exploit today in the realm of politics, as we always do. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to help us out here. Help keep the circus going. Grow the circus. Share the circus. Share it with everybody. I need more guests to keep this carnival going. Okay. I've got a few topics that I want to touch on today, so it's not just going to be another, just a solely dedicated Epstein video or a solely dedicated politics video. I'm going to be touching on a few different subjects today. The biggest thing, again, Epstein, because I do not want this story to die out. Even if it is a voice as small as mine, I'm going to keep talking about it. This story is sadly already kind of going in the gutter, right? Obviously, Trump's trying to divert by getting us to talk about aliens now. Either way, we're going to focus on the important stuff, which is the fact that our government is run by satanic files. And Alex Jones was right all along, even though now he's acting like a Fed. Also, before we dive much deeper, I know, I'm rambling a lot, but I want to ask you guys, please let me know, would you rather me cover politics on a separate channel? Like, I keep this one dedicated to gaming and random bullshit, basically. And then I'll make another one for the politics, because I know, even though I made this account with the intention of, like, gaming as a side, and politics would be my main subject, because I'm a ticked-off hick and I have a lot to talk about, I do get that a lot of people kind of want to tune out of the politics. I don't know, just let me know. Would you rather me have, like, the main channel dedicated to gaming, and at the very least, like, the most political it'll get would be, like, Reddit tards and stuff, covering people being objective retards, and then the political stuff will stay as separate? Or, if you don't mind it all being on one channel, let me know what you think of that idea in the comments below. Anyway, so if you saw my short the other day, I put up a short talking about how we had another Epstein arrest. First, it was the former Norwegian Prime Minister. Let's see if I can find his name here. Thorbjorn? Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Jagland, former Prime Minister of Norway. First, he was, like, pretty much the first Epstein arrest, right? Apart from, like, obviously Ghislaine and shit like that. The Nothing Burger arrest, because now they're... Did you see the conspiracy theory that the person in prison is not actually Ghislaine Maxwell? Let me know what you think of that. I see where they're coming from. And at this point, I'm not going to hold anything against our government. I don't know if that's a high IQ conspiracy. I don't know if that's just grasping at straws, but let me know. The rest of these are pretty much resignations, by the way, not arrests. He's charged last week with aggravated corruption. This is a couple weeks ago now, actually. Epstein paid for Jacqueline and his family travel to the island in 2014. Repeated trips to Epstein's properties. Because bear in mind, it's not just the island. Epstein had multiple properties where a lot of creepy shit was going on. Zorro Ranch we're going to look into. If you thought the island was bad, this is some fucked up shit. After the emails became public, Jagland was stripped of his diplomatic immunity, and 3 of his properties were searched by Norwegian authorities. As a consequence of the search, so this isn't like they saw the emails and then arrested him. They searched, and as a consequence of that search, Jagland has now been charged with gross corruption. Jagland has denied any wrongdoing, he told the Norwegian paper Aftenposten. He is very glad that the matter is being clarified and plans to fully cooperate with the authorities. I have not seen any updates on this so far, but the second arrest was, of course, Prince Andrew. Former Prince Andrew was officially stripped of his royal titles in late 2025 as a result of his ties with Epstein, given new scrutiny after the House Oversight Committee released a trove of files last year. Obviously, there were photos that came out, there were files that came out that implicated Andrew. Even in the limited amount that we got, it got so much worse with the latest drop. He was arrested on suspicion of misconduct while in office. The arrest came after the Thames Valley Police said this month that the department was looking into a claim that the then prince had shared confidential documents with Epstein while he was serving as UK trade envoy in 2010. The claim emerged from an email chain in the latest Epstein files release, obviously. He appears to have forwarded Epstein visit reports for Vietnam, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shenzhen. This is the very least that they could have investigated about Andrew, really. All this shit we have him photographed with, photographed standing creepily over underage girls, all the girls that have implicated him directly. Yeah. I think emailing details of a trade envoy are the last thing on my mind in relation to that guy, just saying. Windsor has denied any wrongdoing in connection with Epstein, but has not commented on the latest batch of files or his arrest. He was released approximately 11 hours after being attested, meaning he has been neither charged nor cleared of wrongdoing, the Thames Valley said in a statement. A statement Thursday, King Charles III vowed to cooperate with any investigation, said that the law must take its course. This is the unfortunate new challenge when we see more Epstein arrests that many of you are happy to point out. I was trying to be optimistic, but sure enough, here we are. These guys, even if they do get arrested, they get perp walked or something, most of it's going to be for a show. Most of it's going to be to make the peasants roar and scream, and then they're going to quietly release them when the crowd dies down, right? It's very annoying. This is what happened with Diddy. Remember when Diddy was first going on, and there were so many, not just like conspiracy theorists, like so much shit that was implicating all these people. The gross, all the weird white party innuendos that were around Hollywood, Jay-Z and Beyonce, not to mention what happened with Justin Bieber and stuff. All of that just seemed to pretty much disappear. Diddy got charged with, like, he trafficked one male prostitute for himself, and then was charged for hitting his girlfriend a few times, right? And then the sentence was like nothing. It's like we had all this crazy shit, and then suddenly, in a blink, it all just goes away. And if that's enough to happen with Diddy, imagine how it's going to go with the royal family. It's kind of what happened with Ghislaine, if you think about it. Has been implicated in so much. But even the Trump administration, this wasn't just Biden, this was the Trump administration too. They're treating her like she was a victim turned bad herself, right? They're treating her like she was just doing what Epstein told her to do. It's not like the files prove that she's like a UK spy with Israeli connections. It's not like the files prove she was totally in on the trafficking and knew exactly what she was doing. It's not like she's one of the primary people named by almost every victim that's come forward as like this horrible wretch of a human being. I mean, yeah, she's in prison, but she's moved to like a minimal security prison with extensive deals and stuff. And now she's even like bargaining with President Trump, right? And the sad part is that I think it's kind of working. And considering all the bargaining going on, like, I'll testify if Trump gives me a deal XYZ, right? Deal of XYZ terms. Do we even take her word for it anymore? Do we take Trump's word for it anymore? Do we really think that Trump's going to give her this easy release and she's going to tell the truth? I know, obviously I can't prove any of this. Obviously this is a quote-unquote conspiracy theory. At the same time, it's fucking obvious. It's like, all the bullshit data that is absolutely chopped, like how we know our cities are a shithole, even if the data reads, look, our GDP expanded so much, this city's doing great. The city's covered in human waste and needles, and has the highest homeless population in the entire country. But the GDP looks great. So technically it's a powerhouse of America, right? We don't need to play the numbers game to see this is a shithole. That's an objective thing. I don't need to see the testimony of XYZ to understand that this bitch, who's absolutely in on it, and Trump, who obviously contested if he was in on it or not, but was connected to these people. Are we really going to take the word of the criminal when she says Trump wasn't involved? Especially when she is actively cutting deals with Trump, who has the power to affect how she is detained for the rest of her life, right? It's so fucking corrupt. I have a lot to get to, so let's move on. So we're going to move on to the next biggest thing in the Epstein case, which is Zorro Ranch. This is the new focus. This is what everybody is looking at now. Obviously, we have so much information about the island already, and there's still plenty we don't know, right? But now our eyes are on Zorro Ranch, because the shit coming out of here, as you can read from this headline, is absolutely insane. Unhinged. Like, how was this going on? And, like, nobody knew about it for so long. And so many absolute elites were in on it. Inside Epstein's Zorro Ranch, where the PDF file looked to carry out human experiments and create a super race breeding facility and buried girls who were strangled during intercourse. What? That headline enough is to make you go like, what the fuck? God only knows what's actually inside of it. God only knows what like the truth is. God only knows what they're hiding about this. It was revealed in another story that the owner of the property was trying to get like a police search on the property for like 7 years, and they kept pushing it off. There's so much weird about so much of this, and it seems to run so deep. I'm not saying like everybody, even your local cops, are in on the big Epstein thing, but obviously there are connections, there's money, there's bribery, there's so much going on behind the scenes that doesn't just say everybody's taking orders from Epstein. Anyway, let's read. Jeffrey Epstein's sprawling Zorro Ranch has been reported to have served as one of his private playgrounds for abuse and trafficking. Remember, this property is right on the Mexican border, which, surprise, surprise, as Trump has told us many times himself, is a hotspot for human trafficking and child trafficking, and many children, unaccompanied minors, and girls who are taken from their family, who are desperate to get across the border, right? Remember, Biden lost track of 300,000 minors? If border security is such a concern, what about this giant property where there's literally tied to a PDF file and trafficker that sits right on the border? Have you heard Trump talk about it? Nope. Neither have I. From looking to carry out human experiments, create a super race breeding facility using his DNA, and even allegedly burying the bodies of girls who had been strangled to death during rough fetish intercourse. Oh god. Victims have long said the property in New Mexico has been looked over by authorities. The 7,500-acre estate, also referred to as the Playboy Ranch, has come under intense recent scrutiny as it made thousands of appearances in the disturbing Epstein files released by the U.S. Department of Justice on January 30th. Investigators previously searched Epstein's New York and Palm Beach homes, his island, and even his Paris apartment, but no formal raid is believed to have ever taken place at Zorro Ranch. Yes, again, for like 7 years now, people have wanted this property searched. For some reason, it just hasn't happened, despite the allegations, and despite the ties to Epstein, and despite its position on the border. This is despite allegations that the PDF file had planned to seed the human race with his DNA. Oh my god. And had 3 computer rooms the size of houses where he would spy on his famous guests. What the fuck? This is literally some James Bond level shit. Like, what is anything anymore? Oh my god. Allegations, by the way. This is multiple allegations from multiple girls. It's not just one girl. And there's many references to this in the actual files, by the way. Oh, by the way, Epstein was also working with, like, biologists on transhumanism and eugenics. So, lines up. You see all the cards, but still there's gonna be culties that are going to say, well, that's not part of it. There's gonna be people who hate the conspiracy theory so much. Like, that can't be it. You're starting to sound crazy. Is this not crazy? On multiple occasions beginning in early 2000s, Epstein allegedly told scientists and businessmen about his ambitions to use the enormous property as a base where women would be disseminated. Oh god. It was also alleged that Epstein's disturbing goal was to have 20 women at a time impregnated at Zorro Ranch. Oh my god. Are you happy that those files are redacted? Are you happy that the people who could have their careers ruined by being named in this shit, are you happy that their careers are safe? Their billionaire careers are safe? Even if it means we don't get to learn anything more about this, we don't get to learn about who was in on this shit. He is said to have based his idea on accounts of the repository for germinal choice, which was to be stocked with the sperm of Nobel laureates who wanted to strengthen the human gene pool. What the fuck? Ugh. The pictures and the videos are so bad. If you have a strong stomach and you want to learn more about this, I know it's a lot to digest, but people need to know about this. People need to see how fucking disgusting this shit is. And you are not mad enough. I highly recommend Blair White's channel. She has recently made videos going deeper into the files, looking through some of the photos, and even more recently looking into the home videos of Epstein, which is so disturbing. Even if you don't want to believe you don't want to dive down the rabbit hole of some of the conspiracy theories that reach into obviously New World Order, Illuminati. If you don't want to dive down that rabbit hole, fine. You think this is a conspiracy? In November last year, witnesses claimed the disgraced financier had used the secluded compound to then physically conduct non-consensual medical procedures to advance his alleged interest in selective breeding. We have people coming forward saying they were drugged, had sex organs and sperm harvested from their bodies, and woke up around medical equipment not knowing where they were or what happened to them. New Mexico State Representative Andrea Romero told the Daily Mail. Again, word of mouth, people coming forward saying this, but still, what the fuck? This isn't some random lady making an accusation that a powerful dude that she has a political agenda against raped her 30 years ago when nobody knew him, and that she doesn't have a friend to corroborate, she doesn't have a consistent story. This is multiple people, and evidently it is credible enough for state representatives to be talking about. Now granted, Andrea Romero, Democrat, Epstein files, obviously it's mainly being used to attack Trump now. So while I definitely don't trust the fucking Republicans, do still take what the Democrats say with a little grain of salt, just because they have an agenda. Romero is now one of several lawmakers calling for the State Truth Commission to investigate potential sexual and medical abuses on the isolated ranch. As far-fetched as they may sound, the chilling accounts echo long-circulating claims about Epstein's obsession with eugenics and his desire to engineer genetically superior children. Yes, this is a very common theme with Epstein. He was really big into eugenics, he was really big into transhumanism, he was really big in superior races and genetic engineering. This should not be shocking to you. Powerful people are willing to do terrible things if it means they get certain results. When you have that kind of power, peasants do really start to look like your guinea pigs. There's a reason that to test the effect of radiation on the human body, governments, I don't remember which specific one it was, okay? They would irradiate oatmeal and then feed it to orphans and foster children, and then document the results and use that as a case study. The Tuskegee syphilis experiments knowingly injected an entire African American population with syphilis just to see how it affected them. Do you know how we know a lot of random things like the endurance of a human body against the cold, or how the body responds to limbs being removed? A lot of that actually came from real files from that World War II Japanese human experiment unit that was conducting inhumane and terrible human experiments on prisoners of war. The COVID injection, it was a rushed vaccine, it was barely tested whatsoever, and then it was just released to the public. And then those first few injections became a sort of case study, even though we had the reports of so many side effects, so many things going wrong, people dropping dead despite being so healthy and having no immediate reaction afterward. And what do you know, it was only after that they start to say, mRNA doesn't seem very safe. Powerful people do disgusting things, and one of the biggest motives throughout history has been just experimentation. In their words, we did this terrible thing, but it was for the greater good. Now we know how this affects humans and how we can prevent it, and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. This could easily just be another block in the chain. Civil filings claim that the compound hosted the former Prince Andrew, who was accused by Virginia Giuffre, who produced photographs and written statements showing she visited the compound during the time she was trafficked as a teenager between 2000 and 2002. My job was to entertain him endlessly, whether that meant having to bestow him my body during an erotic massage, or simply taking him horseback riding. Giuffre wrote in an unpublished manuscript called The Billionaire's Playboy Club, which was contained in unsealed court documents in 2019. Windsor has not publicly acknowledged visiting Zorro and has consistently denied Giuffre's abuse allegations. There have been unverified claims by contractors and journalists that Bill Clinton and other prominent figures, including Woody Allen and Noam Chomsky, also spent time at the property. I'm really shocked that Clinton is named in here. There is no suggestion that they were aware of the alleged wrongdoing by Epstein. Maria Farmer, a former employee of Epstein, said she and her younger sister Annie visited Zorro Ranch in 1996 and used under the guise of an art commission. Farmer alleged she was assaulted by Epstein and his partner Ghislaine Maxwell, who in 2021 was found guilty of child sex trafficking and serving a 20-year sentence in federal prison. Annie said she was 15 when flown to the property and directed by Epstein and Maxwell to take off all her clothes and get on a massage table. Farmer also claimed that the ranch housed 3 huge computer rooms, which were bigger than houses, to spy on Epstein's elite roster of guests. All of Epstein's residences had these mechanical rooms and tunnel systems. I know this because Epstein told me. I know we want so bad to think shit like this is just impossible, because we associate that with things like Bond movies. We associate that with all the spy movies and the big conspiracy-lit sort of films, the Dan Brown films. We picture Robert Langdon running through the streets of Prague, trying to find the Holy Grail and running from all these. We associate it with fiction, in other words. We hear things like this, and we think it's impossible because we just associate with fiction. I don't think you realize that this is very much possible. There have been people who have found secret cameras in their bed and breakfast. Most of the time it's just to create secret gooning folders. Sometimes it's more sinister. There have been implications of blackmail featuring total randos and barely millionaires that are easy to influence. Are we really going to deny that it's very much possible that something even more elaborate, something even more intense can exist within this realm of the super elite? I hate calling them the elite, right? Blackmail happens all the time. People are recorded all the time without their consent. Every day. Walk down your street, you're probably being recorded. By a street camera, sure, but also by ring videos, and sometimes, yes, by people who are going to use that as a secret gooning device or something. It happens all the time in the common population. Why wouldn't it happen on an even more elaborate scale in the upper class, where there's even more of a motive? And why wouldn't that be used as blackmail? And there's a lot of shady decisions and connections that have been made by local politicians, including our belated Trump, that could be explained quite easily. A lot of sudden flops in opinion that could be explained by blackmail. This place looks like it's just begging to be part of a conspiracy theory. These rooms were enormous, bigger than houses. I have no idea why anyone needs so many computers in one room. All of Epstein's estates had pinhole cameras used to record everything, that were invisible to the naked eye unless you were looking right at them, Farmer said. In 2021, an Albuquerque radio station host revealed that an architect and former IT contractor who worked on Epstein's internet communications security from 1999 to 2007 had called in to tell all on the mysterious property. The architect had even provided inside photographs of the ranch and revealed other unusual features of Epstein's estate. One such feature, which the architecture told the host, Aragon, was something he would never forget. A 6-foot naked portrait of Ghislaine Maxwell holding a gold dagger that had been hung in a basement elevator hallway. The portrait of Maxwell with her legs reportedly spread was the first thing that any guests or victims would see on their way down to the basement and pool areas. Yeah, that's not fucking creepy. Yeah, that's not a red flag. And people still want to deny that there was a religious aspect to this. People still want to deny that there was a satanic aspect to this. Well, sure, there's disgusting elites, but there's no satanic. There's nothing. The satanic panic. There's a lot of things I did not like about the satanic panic. All right, especially as a metalhead and as a goth. But the existence of satanic PDFs. Yeah, I'm willing to believe that. I'm willing to believe that much. This, the radio host said, was designed to intimidate the victims being brought into the ranch for Epstein. Aragon also said that the plans to reveal the ranch had an unusual number of bedrooms, just 4, which for a house almost 33,000 square foot in size seems like a small amount. Yeah. That 33,000 square feet, 4 bedrooms. That's not suspicious. These plans give us a firmer idea of what was going on at the ranch. All of that in the basement feels more like a dungeon with the nebulous mechanical rooms, he added. The plan showed that Epstein's master bedroom takes up most of the space on the first floor, while on the same level there were 2 relatively tiny ensuite rooms and a 4th staff room on the first floor. Every room from the closets to the bathrooms appeared to have a vestibule, which Aragon suggested were holding area for the women before they visited Epstein. The maze of rooms, doors, vestibules, waiting areas, and doors, there's no doubt they were used to maximum effect to trap and contain the victims until they were needed for Epstein's rituals. There appears to be no escape. Can you imagine how that would feel for young teenage girls? They must have felt so hopeless and vulnerable, true. More recently, it has been alleged that Epstein had ordered 2 foreign girls who had been strangled to death during rough sex to be buried near the ranch, according to an email released in the latest files. The email, sent by a person claiming to have worked for Epstein, also includes links purporting to show the late PDF file engaging in sex with underage girls. The correspondence, first sent to a man named Eddie Aragon on November 21, 2019, before being forwarded to the FBI, was released as part of the 3 million documents from the Epstein files. In the email titled Confidential Jeffrey Epstein, the person whose name has been redacted claimed to have been there and seen it all as a former staff at the Zorro. They alleged the girls were buried on the orders of Epstein and Madam G, believed to be Ghislaine Maxwell at Zorro Ranch. But remember, Ghislaine, she was a victim too, guys. She had no idea what was going on. She doesn't deserve this rough a sentence. Surely we can make a deal with her. In the email they wrote, Edward, this is sensitive, so it will be the first and last email depending on your discretion. You can choose to take it or trash it, but this comes from a person that has been there and seen it all as a former staff at the Zorro. The material below was taken from Jeffrey Epstein's home as my insurance in case of future litigation against Epstein. Sorry, no questions. We went through this email, right? Oh, no, we didn't. I wanted to go through this. I pulled up this email, and then my video stopped working. The audio broke for some reason. That was damning about Jeffrey Epstein is yet to be written. Did you know somewhere in the hills outside the Zorro, 2 foreign girls were buried on the order of Jeffrey and Madam G? The sender also included links to videos that claim to show Epstein having intercourse with minors, threesomes, and intercourse with underage girls. The email was forwarded to the FBI just 3 months after Epstein died while being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City. A former police officer who patrolled the area around the ranch for 15 years also told the FBI he was worried that evidence was being destroyed on the estate, as seen in a document. The document, dated July 19, 2019, just days after Epstein's arrest, was an FBI report log that included details of a call taken from a retired New Mexico State police officer whose name has been redacted. The former cop said he noticed the barn had a chimney and a sally port, a secure entryway with multiple doors, set up so only one could be opened at a time. Redacted name is concerned the property could potentially have an incinerator concealed within the barn. That's a concern. Jeffrey was also named in ordering multiple barrels of a certain acid that people have used to melt bodies, make body sludge out of, and that obviously is another way to destroy a lot of critical evidence. Redacted name explained that there is a lot of security for the properties, including cameras, sally ports, and other security measures. Redacted name wanted to report the information to the FBI because he is concerned evidence could be destroyed there. Good on this officer for actually having the brains to report that, having the balls to report that. The ex-officer also told the FBI there had been a lot of high-profile people seen frequently at the ranch. According to the report, the retired policeman said he had heard rumors about Epstein using the property for recruiting girls to visit. The ex-cop's call to the FBI came just days after Epstein was arrested on sex trafficking charges on July 6, 2019, and weeks before his death on August 10th. New Mexico's Attorney General has now reopened the investigation into Epstein's former Zorro Ranch. Why wasn't this investigated originally? Why? And even after his death, they just kind of kept pushing it off. Nobody's ever looked into this place. Sometimes silence speaks more than words, doesn't it? Attorney General Raul Torres' office said last week that the decision was made after reviewing information recently released by the U.S. Justice Department. Although New Mexico's initial case was closed in 2019 at the request of federal prosecutors in New York, state prosecutors say now that revelations outlined in the previously sealed FBI files warrant further examination. The New Mexico Department of Justice said special agents and prosecutors at the agency will be seeking immediate access to the complete, unredacted federal case file and intend to work with other law enforcement partners as well as the New Truth Commission established by state lawmakers to look into activities at the ranch. Documents released as part of the Epstein files also show the PDF file financier intended to leave his Zorro estate to his Belarusian girlfriend, Karina Shulik. Let me guess, this is another person that hasn't been investigated? Epstein bought Zorro Ranch in 1993 from Bruce King, a former 3-time New Mexico governor. Oh, another governor doing business with Epstein, including this ranch. Epstein owned the property until he died in a New York federal prison. His estate listed it in 2021 for $27.5 million. That price was later dropped to $18 million as the ranch was sold for an undisclosed price in 2023 to a limited liability corporation that renamed the property the San Rafael Ranch, but whose owner is shrouded in secrecy. Oh, great. A lot of people keep asking, why don't victims name names? Why doesn't Massie name names? I'm not here to run cover for either. I think if you have the names, name them. However, not only do we have to think about, remember, all the allegations of Epstein's secret rooms, all the potential blackmail going around, that could easily be affecting the victims too. The fact that Virginia Giuffre died of suicide, quote unquote, maybe she didn't. Maybe they do have a good reason to be skeptical of naming names, knowing just how evil our elites are. I have another potential reason. First of all, Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, this is another guy who's implicated heavily in the files, by the way. Not just, named and, doing business with Epstein. Obviously, we know that already. He's his lawyer. Which, you gotta be some kind of absolute scum of the earth to defend Epstein. I get it's your job, but still. God. He's also implicated in, he's, named by victims as one of the abusers. He calls the young victims liars, prostitutes, sluts, and druggies. He told them they could be charged with crimes, and now he's threatening to sue them.
Of McCarthyism that has afflicted America since the 1950s. I want you to look at this paper that has been reproduced and sent by the Justice Department. It's called Prominent Names, and it's a list of prominent people who have been accused. Every single name of every accuser has been blacked out. So, for example, let's turn to me. It says blank, 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 blacked out, stated she gave him a massage on Epstein's plane, parenthesis, not a minor. So let's understand that. This is an adult, a woman who was on Epstein's plane, she says. I was never on an Epstein plane with a young woman.
Right.
I never got a massage. This is total defamation, a total lie, but I can't disprove it because they won't give me her name. McCarthyism on the issue of his spying let me continue.
Let's get
on
to
the issue of his for the Mossad. That comes from what is called an undercover confidential source. I happen to know who the source is. The source is somebody who the FBI investigated, found to be totally incredible, lacked all credibility. This is the worst form of McCarthyism. Why are we tolerating this? Why are we allowing accusations without the names of the accusers? For example, in my case, it's an adult woman. We don't know whether she's a victim. We don't know whether she's a perpetrator. We don't know whether she's a co-conspirator. Why do you hide her name?
So do you take his word for it? This NWO account, top comment covers it very well. Well, clearly he's the victim in all this. Isn't that true? I don't like guilty until proven innocent logic. It has ruined a lot of lives. False accusations are awful, right? I think you gotta be some sick kind of person to make them, and I think it can destroy your life to get one. But at the same time, buddy, you're defending a PDF file, and you're implicated with the PDF file. And where are you getting your information? We're taking his word for it that he talked to the FBI and said, they said that she's an incredible source. How are we supposed to know that? Alan Dershowitz, a prominent American attorney at Harvard Law and Harvard Law professor, published a controversial op-ed in the Los Angeles Times on May 7th, 1997, titled "Statutory Rape is an Outdated Concept." In the piece, he argued that modern statutory rape laws were outdated, illogical, and needed to be re-examined, proposing that the age of consent should be lowered to 15 or 14. If a 16-year-old can choose abortion, she should be able to choose to have. Oh my god, this is so... These people! That was another thing that Elon, I believe, is talking about, which, again, also named in the files. There's not even solid proof that he's been to the island. Actually, there's proof that he's... So far, a lot of the talk with Elon has been like, Epstein trying to talk in code and make innuendos, and Elon being too autistic to really get them. Which is gross, but kind of funny in its own way, too. And like in these trafficking rings, right? It's not all the time that it's the guys that are recruiting girls. Sometimes they get their ring of girls, and they use those girls to enlist more girls. And if you're thinking like a pervert, it makes sense. Girls are naturally wary of men. Alright, I believe in true gender equality. I loathe the sort of man-hating culture that we have now. But I'm also a biological realist, and from a biological standpoint, women are naturally more wary of men. They're the more selective sex, right? However, with other women, even though that there is a natural sort of competition, there is a natural sort of rivalry that a lot of girls have with each other, women are naturally more inclined to trust other women because they're less of a threat to them, right? It's the same reason that people are more worried about trans men in women's bathroom than trans women in men's bathroom. To be clear, I think men are entitled to privacy. Men are entitled to privacy just as much as women are. But we worry more about trans women in ladies' locker rooms because men are more of a threat, biologically speaking, to women. They are stronger, they are bigger, they are more capable of overpowering us. That's not all trans women, to be clear, especially like real trans women. If I met Blair White in the women's bathroom by chance, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't even clock her if I didn't know she was trans from her content on YouTube. But you have these gross AGP-looking motherfuckers going in there and showing that they are sexual perverts. They're on the prowl, and they're in your space where women are vulnerable, especially like locker rooms and stuff. Yeah, women are going to be scared. Not just uncomfortable, but scared. What I mean by that is like, these people, these traffickers, these guys, these disgusting men that are looking to recruit girls in their god-awful schemes, it makes sense that they would use the girls that they have to enlist more girls. So the girls, sadly, in and of themselves, become part of the trafficking, part of the crime. That sort of ideology that the leftists always use as an excuse to reduce prison sentences. Dude, so many perpetrators were victims themselves at some point. There are many cases where I would say that doesn't fucking matter. Throw them in the wood chipper. But in this case specifically, it's sad because, yeah, disgusting men like this can use that against these girls to ruin their lives. People like this on the surface level can use that to destroy their credibility, ruin their lives, and it can backfire on them in the public eye in terms of court cases. That's not even considering what's going on in the underlayers, in the bed of corruption that lies under here. The blackmail, the threats, so much that can, like, not just threaten your position in public life, but your position in any sort of life. And it would be scary. Again, you can say, well, they should just name the names, get them out there, we'll jump on it. We have been twisting the arm of the government to release these files for years. Biden did not release them. Trump did not release them after saying he would. What if they name the names and nothing happens? And they don't get the protection that they need, and the perpetrators are not put in prison. Then what happens? And even from behind bars, these guys can still make orders. I get the frustration. I really do. I get the frustration. You have the names, name them. On the other hand, I also get why these girls would be scared. I get why people like Massie would be hesitant. I still believe this is information that needs to be out there, and there is so much that has the potential to go wrong for these girls from both a surface level and a conspiratorial standpoint. And speaking of Massie, by the way, he talked more about this in an interview recently. Why doesn't Massie release the names? Here's your answer.
Why haven't you released the names? You said you were going to release the names.
I got some of these questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have the names. I never had the names, never claimed to have the names. The survivors have the names. And what I did was to offer to read those names on the floor of the House if we couldn't get the government to release them. That wasn't the be-all, end-all. That's an inducement to the government to say, look, at the end of all of this, we are eventually going to get these names out, but we're going to make you release them. And so the other reason not to release, let's say we've got 20 names, is there's probably 100, right? And if we release the 20, they could release the 20 documents that name those 20 people and keep 80 documents secret. As long as there are some names that the survivors have that the DOJ hasn't released, then they got to keep doing releases.
I'm not here to tell you to glaze Massie. I'm not here to tell you to hate Massie. But from an objective standpoint, this does make sense too. Getting the government to release the names, as opposed to just the victims or just somebody reading them on the victim's behalf. If the government does it, there's an extra layer of security there, right? True, they could still go after the girls to prevent them from like going to trial, to prosecuting, pressing charges, all that. But if the government does it, A, there is an extra level of security there. B, there's a level of accountability there, considering it's the government's job. They've been told to release these files multiple times, and they haven't. And C, 3, if you can only release they can only release so many names, right? There are only so many victims that have come forward. There are only so many victims that are willing to talk to Massie behind the scenes, that are willing to testify. It's a very limited number, right? In the files, there's hundreds, thousands. In the files, there's like hundreds of girls that are mentioned, that make these allegations, that voice their concerns, that all these things. There's hundreds to thousands of them. But there's off the top of your head, like maybe a dozen girls that are accusing Epstein publicly that are known, right? If the victims release the names, then that's all they get. They only get the names that this tiny amount of victims that are willing to come forward are able to name. If we can pressure the DOJ to release the whole shabaddle, we're going to get a lot more names inherently, because then you're also releasing what the victims who are too afraid to come forward, the victims who haven't come forward, and you can argue some of them incredible or whatever. You're still getting more names that way. I'd say that's worth it. I get the frustration of like, you have the names, just say them, just say it. I get it. 100%. I get it. At the same time, I get why they're skeptical. I get why they're scared. And I get why there's this level of hesitation, and why, from their point of view, it would be safer in a way, and more lucrative, to get the DOJ to release the full truth, rather than just them throwing names to the wind. Especially because, very sadly, even though we got majority signatures and all that on Massie's bill and stuff, it is mainly just like a very select few amount of politicians that are actually working on this. Most of them like signed Massie's bill, released the files, and then just kind of moved on. Right now it's mainly just Massie, Kana, MTG. Nancy Mace kind of hopped on last second. It's very few people who are still talking about this subject and still pressuring for this kind of stuff to come out. Hopefully this is making sense to you. It is a David and Goliath story. It is not Trump against the swamp anymore. They are all part of the swamp. As much as I love Massie, God only knows what's in his record, right? Right, you can support people, you can support these people based on individual policies. As much as I hate Trump right now, I would still say that I would rather have his border policies right now. I would rather have the ICE operations, the mass deportations. I will endorse those kinds of policies, even though I hate Trump. Like, this is why we need to go back to focusing on like the individual policies instead of resorting to this cult of personality sort of worship of our politicians. But yeah, we need to stop like putting all of our faith into individual politicians. We need to just focus on the individual cases. If they're not all corrupt, they're all capable of corruption, right? They all have a dirty record. If only because we're human, so they're all going to have some scandal, real or fake, in their history. They're all going to have mistakes in their history. Just to survive in this field, just to survive in politics, maybe it's true that you do need to take some money from unscrupulous people. Maybe it's true that you do need to have some shady connections. Maybe it's true that you do need to know a guy who knows a guy who... all this shit, right? Politics is a dirty, dirty game. Last thing I want to reference about Epstein before we move on to another topic is this. This is Forbes, the sell-off of Jeffrey Epstein's tainted homes and where the money went. Remember how Howard Lutnick claimed that he only met Epstein once? He was only with his wife. He walked into an apartment. Epstein said a lewd joke about the right kind of massages, and then they walked right back out with their dignity intact, right? Yeah. That's a false. That's very false. Not only did we go through the emails of Howard Lutnick planning to go to the island with his children, meticulously listing out their ages, with another family who also had children, they also did business. So Epstein's 90 71st Street, New York, right? This property. You might have seen photos of this. 7-story, 40-room neoclassical mansion on Manhattan's Upper East Side. This was purchased for $13 million in 1989 by Leslie Wexner, who was Epstein's main client and business partner for decades, starting in the late 1980s. Wexner had said he severed ties with Epstein in 2007, right? Convenient. In 2011, Wexner transferred the property to Maple Inc., a U.S. Virgin Islands-based company controlled by Epstein. Epstein's executors valued the home at $56 million after his death in August 2019 and put it up for sale in $88 million. It ultimately sold for $51 million to Michael Daffy, a former Goldman Sachs executive. Remember when we were going in who was named in the files and who was resigning because of their role in the files? Goldman Sachs' top lawyer was a part of that. Here's their name again. I can't prove there's a connection here. I can't prove I can't prove anything here, but kinda weird, right? Epstein also had ties to the house next door, which was owned by Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, his neighbor for at least 2 decades. In 1988, Sam Conversion Corps, a company based in Columbus, Ohio, registered to an address then associated with Wexner, purchased the 3-story home for an undisclosed amount. Epstein is listed as the vice president of SAM on the deed, and 4 years later, in 1992, SAM transferred the property to a trust where Epstein was the trustee, also registered at the same Columbus address. In 1996, that trust sold the property to another entity, the Comet Trust, unaffiliated with Epstein or Wexner, for an estimated $6.2 million, according to Crane's Business Journal. That trust ultimately sold the house for an estimated $7.6 million in 1998 to Lutnick, who has owned it since. 358 Elbrila Way, Palm Beach, the Palm Beach property where there were a lot of allegations, right? Epstein was originally suspected for doing lewd shit with girls because so many girls in the Palm Beach area came forward saying, this guy's a fucking creep, or worse yet, this guy did something to me. The other property that appears in Epstein's 2019 federal indictment is his 14,000 square foot 6-bedroom home in Palm Beach. The indictment mentions the property 13 times, alleging that Epstein ensnared a network of underage girls that he abused at the house. Palm Beach police searched the home in 2005 as part of the first investigation into Epstein, which led to a grand jury trial that indicted him on a single count of soliciting prostitution in 2006. Thanks, Bush. By the way, Obama didn't do much better, pretty much dismissed the case. Acosta cost him another easy deal. Epstein bought the home in 1990 for $2.5 million, 5 years after President Donald Trump bought his residence at Mar-a-Lago, which is located 2 miles to the south. That's also when Epstein and Trump appeared to have first met, starting a friendship that lasted until at least 2004. The only credit I'll give Trump in this situation, there does seem to be evidence that yes, there was a falling out in that 2005 sort of era. There does seem to be a conflict started over Epstein trying to recruit his girls at Mar-a-Lago, so leading to his banishment. And yes, there is evidence that Trump reported him to the police. Granted, that's not Trump's word anymore, that is in the files. Just as well in the files, there's also allegations. One was proven incredible, if not impossible, because it happened at a place that didn't exist yet, according to her testimony. But there were many others besides just hers. There's proof that Epstein and Trump's friendship goes back quite a time. Epstein's doing all this creepy shit in Palm Beach, she's just 2 miles off. That's not immediately saying that if you're guilty, your neighbor's guilty. At the same time, it's just weird. I'll let you be the judge of if you believe Trump is in on it. Do you think Trump is guilty? Do you think Trump is innocent but covering for donors and people like Bannon? Tell me in the comments below. What do you think is Trump's role in this? The two men reportedly had a falling out that year after they got to a bidding war for the Maison de whatever that word is, a French Regency-style estate in Palm Beach. Trump ultimately won. Epstein's estate valued the Palm Beach house at $12.4 million in 2019 and listed it for $22 million in 2020. It finally sold a year later in January 2021 for $18.5 million and proceeds of the sale reportedly went to the victims' compensation fund. The local developer who bought it, Todd Michael Glasser, tore down Epstein's house, changed the address, and flipped the empty lot for $26 million 8 months later. Great St. James and Little St. James Island, the U.S. Virgin Islands. Epstein bought the 70-plus acre Little St. James Island, located in the U.S. Virgin Islands, for nearly $8 million in 1998. It came to be known as PDF Island after Epstein allegedly used it at the center of his sex trafficking ring. In 2016, he also purchased the larger island right next to it, the 160-plus acre Great St. James, for $22.5 million. Between 2001 and 2018, Epstein allegedly bought underage girls and young women to Little St. James and forced them to engage in sexual acts and forced labor, according to a criminal case filed by the government of the U.S. Virgin Islands in 2020. The complaint also alleged that Epstein had bought Great St. James to further shield his conduct on Little St. James from view and prevent his detection by law enforcement or the public. In May 2023, Epstein's estate sold the islands for $60 million to a private equity billionaire, Stephen Dekoff, who told Forbes that he planned to build a 25-room luxury resort on the islands. Yeah, something tells me that that island is cursed. You're not going to make a lot. Under the settlement, half of that amount went to the U.S. Virgin Islands government to be placed in a trust set up to provide counseling programs and other services for victims of SA and human trafficking. His French property. French police searched the apartment along with officials of the modeling agency owned by Epstein's associate, Jean-Luc Brunel. Major creep. Major role in all this. There's a lot of weird, creepy connections between France and Epstein, just saying. Like the UK and Epstein, sure, mainly because Ghislaine was allegedly a British spy or something, or otherwise had, like, deep ties to the British government. Same with Epstein and Israel. France is up there too, because there's a lot of weird shit going on in France with those two. And Brunel was arrested in 2020 while trying to board a flight to Senegal and detained on charges of rape, SA of minors and human trafficking. He was found dead in his Paris prison cell in February 2022. Not a lot of people think about that. I forgot about it for a while. This guy, major position in Epstein's trafficking ring for years, used his modeling agency to recruit for Epstein and himself. He also died in his prison cell. Isn't that interesting? Sold in June 2022 for roughly $10 million to Georgy Chushev, a Bulgarian businessman who runs a plastic packaging company. A lawyer for Epstein's estate told Bloomberg at the time that part of the proceeds would be paid out to Epstein's victims. His last one is this Ohio home. This is a place owned by Wexner. I'm guessing that was supposed to be Wexner's wife, Abigail. The Wexners have another Epstein property. Wow. They seem to do a lot of business together, don't they? So what do you take from all that? Well, first of all, of the very limited people who purchased Epstein's property and did business with this involving this property, one of the names just happens to be Lutnick. The guy who, I only met him once and then never again. I walked out of there with my dignity. Liar, liar, pants on fire. America, please arrest the PDF files. Kash Patel, cracking a beer with Team USA. I'm all about supporting your team during the Olympics, I get it, whatever. It's not really the time for this, Kash. Don't you have better things to be doing? To make America great? Right, that took a lot longer than I thought it would. I cannot seem to talk about Epstein without going on a very long tangent. I'm very sorry about that. I had more topics to get into, so we're going to dive into those now. We're going to start diving into those. Okay, first of all, we have this story. Trans Minnesota Dem bizarrely argues queer kids need access to corn sites for educational reasons. Why is it whenever things like this come up? When Governor Ron DeSantis says, don't talk about sexuality to kids 3rd grade and younger. When Tennessee people say no explicitly sexual shows shown to children. It's always queer people that seem most affected by their own admission. Because Governor DeSantis does make a lot of, you can say, like, obviously, a lot of the hoot in those countries for those laws is things like drag shows for kids. Which drag queens are not kid-friendly. Guarantee you that much, especially the amount that have been caught with kitty corn. And then DeSantis, a lot of what got, like, the quote-unquote don't say gay bill going was the fact that people were trying to teach gender ideology and sexuality to young children. Like, kindergartners would get the genderbread man shit and stuff, right? And it was really creepy. And that wasn't one of the reasons, but the bills themselves say things like no sexually explicit shows, period. Yet the quote-unquote queer people just can't help shooting themselves in the foot, can they? A transgender Minnesota lawmaker ignited an online firestorm, understandably, after bizarrely arguing against age limits on porn sites, claiming queer kids need access to X-rated content for educational purposes. This shit destroys human brain. Spend 5 minutes on Reddit and yeah, you'll see what I mean. But we need to show it for kids so they can be queer, so they can watch enough, weird anthropomorphic furry corn and think they're a non-binary cat in the future, right? Yeah, that's going to be really healthy for them. State Representative Leigh Fink, a two-term Democrat who identifies as a woman, pushed back against a proposal that would require age checks on porn websites to shield children from accessing the raunchy adult material, wildly insisting the bill would be weaponized against the LGBTQ+ community. The POL claimed attorneys general in states with age verification laws were almost jubilant at the chance to block queer kids from explicit contents that could educate them about their sexuality and community. Oh my god, this is... Something tells me a majority of gay people don't want to show porn to kids. Something tells me a majority of lesbians don't want to show porn to kids. Something tells me a majority of normal fucking trans people, real trans people, not AGBs, don't want to show porn to kids. It's just this weird influx of AGP trans freaks, this weird queer ideology, which nobody knows what the fuck it is, including the queers themselves most of the time. I'm emo, so I'm gonna identify as queer. I got a septum piercing, now I'm queer. If you can't explain what the fuck it is, it doesn't exist. I'm not saying the people themselves shouldn't exist, but yeah, I'm going to say that queer doesn't exist. It's a fucking slur. It's a fucking slur for actual gay people, and I'm not going to use it. They're almost jubilant about being able to use these laws to ban young people from accessing content that would educational if they are queer. Oh my god, fuck you, you fucking freak. You're a principal, you have LGBT students in your school, and we also know that they're not receiving sex education for queer kids. Maybe they don't need that kind of education. I don't mind. I don't mind telling like 16, 15-year-olds, hey, gay people exist. Because I'm all about teaching kids about the real world. That means don't bother teaching them about some bullshit they're never going to use, when you could be teaching them about taxes, about trades, about things that they can actually use in their life directly coming out of school. Not just shit that they're going to use in, maybe, if they're lucky, gender studies college courses, and then never can pick up again. They're going to become a secretary or something, right? I'm all about teaching kids about the real world. And like it or not, no matter how conservative the state is, gay people do exist. I would hold off on teaching them about trans stuff, just because even 16 is an awkward age for kids. Don't push them down that path yet. But gay people do exist in the world. I'm not going to tell that to 3-year-olds. But when they're of age, right? Tell them, hey, these people exist. It doesn't automatically mean just because you don't like guys right now that you like girls. Don't confuse them about it, obviously. Just in a neutral way that doesn't indoctrinate them. Say, hey, gay people exist. This is a whole other thing. You don't need to show them fucking corn for them to understand that. You don't need to show them fucking corn to tell them gay people exist. Even if they are gay kids themselves. Somehow, by these people's logic, by these people's fucked up, stupid logic, somehow gay people, trans people have always existed from the beginning of time. Biblical people were trans. Biblical people were queer. People BC, they're queer. These African nations that existed way before the time of Christ, they had this concept of non-binary. They had this concept of men becoming women. Native Americans, they recognized gay people. Whatever the case may be, they use that logic, that non-logic all the time. Half the time it's absolute bullshit if you look into it for 2 seconds. And if you ask those very nations about it, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But also, at the same time, somehow they've always existed, despite this never being a thing. They existed in a time when corn didn't exist. But by today's standard, if you don't show corn to a quote-unquote queer kid or questioning kid, you're erasing their existence. Do they always exist despite whatever sort of adversity, whatever sort of environment they're in? They've always existed everywhere. You look under your bed, you see queers. You look here, you see queers. You see queers everywhere. They're everywhere. Like you're fucking schizophrenics with your hallucinations. Queers are everywhere. Everywhere you look. Everywhere you turn. They're behind you. They're in front of you. They're all around you. Ah! They're everywhere. That sort of logic. Since the beginning of time. According to them. But then, if you don't show corn to children, they don't exist. You're erasing their existence. Make up your mind. What is it? This is why I hate the fucking queer and gender ideology. It makes no fucking sense. It contradicts itself constantly, much less biological reality. Basic truths that every culture, since the beginning of time, has actually had. The lefty lawmaker's odd rant sparked outrage after Moms of Liberty, a conservative parents group, shared a clip of their remarks on X. What a strange but not shocking in the least position to take. Someone do a hard drive scam. Somebody do a hard drive scam. FBI, this. I don't know what this is, but it needs to be investigated. Several digital naysayers accused Fink of grooming kids, branded it a child predator, and called for it to be removed from office. Yes, please. I will use your pronouns if I respect you. If you're a creature like this that crawled from the depths of hell, no, fuck you. They aren't even hiding the fact that they want to groom and sexualize young children with corn. One critic raged, while another called the stance pure arrogance and stupidity. Boom. Arrogance is a good word for it, really. This is so narcissistic. You're so self-absorbed that you have to project your identity onto other people without their consent, onto their children. Is it gonna tell me what district this thing works in? Where's it from? Minnesota. Of course it's fucking Minnesota. Are you kidding? Minnesota? You are cooked. Moving on to our next story. Californians trapped as cartel unleashes hell near U.S. border over drug kingpins killing. Pray for us. Alright, so basically there's pretty much all-out war between cartel and Mexican authorities going on in Mexico. Shocker, shocker. And Americans that were in Mexico at the time caught in the crossfires, so this is encouraging, Of course, people like Lindsey Graham are using that to encourage Trump to take action. I genuinely have like a 50-50. I'm undecided, pretty much. I have like an undecided stance when it comes to foreign policy. There are a lot of instances where I can see the logic, right? I can see the logic. Like, for example, Maduro's arrest. I don't think randomly bombing other countries is good. I'm 90% isolationist at the same time. It was executed, no issues. Venezuelan people are cheering it on, in most part. Objectively, we removed a dictator. People celebrating it. That's pretty much a good thing. I get it. I get the skepticism. I get the hesitation. And even Iran, I was originally like, free Iran, right? We got Maduro out so easily. We can clearly do it with the Ayatollah. Not only is Iran more of a threat than... Not only is Iran a lot more of a threat, if only through the connections that they have to more dangerous bodies, especially Russia, because Trump is trying to get a peace deal out of Russia, right? So he's definitely not going to do anything about that now. Yeah, I'm like 90%, if not more. I am very isolationist. I don't want new wars. I do agree with the libertarian stance. At the same time, I am empathetic to Iranians. I am empathetic to Venezuelans living under Maduro. I get it. It sucks. I'm just extremely skeptical and need an outstanding reason that doesn't come from Lindsey Graham, preferably, to convince me U.S. intervention is necessary, first of all. Necessary or even wanted, right? Californians have been trapped in Mexico as cartel violence engulfed a popular tourist city and spilled toward the U.S. border. Americans in Puerto Vallarta were urged to stay indoors as narco gangs went on a bloody rampage after Jalisco. New generation cartel leaders Nemesio El Mencho, Oseguera Cervantes, I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering these names, was killed in a military raid Sunday. Mexico took out the cartel leader. Obviously, it's sad that it resulted in this, but at the same time, is it our business? Carnage spread up the west coast of the country through Sunday, with reports of attacks getting closer to the states in Baja California while gunfire erupted at Guadalajara International Airport. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Look at that. Cars and businesses were also set on fire farther across the country in Cozumel, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, and Cancun on the east side. Among those trapped in Puerto Vallarta was Katie Holloman, who had been on the way to the airport when she was suddenly told to stay at the hotel. The makeup artist from El Dorado Hills, California said, "We were told to shelter in place. We need to stay in the hotel. It was safer here, but it's not safe to travel to the airport. The road is closed due to the cartel. There's no flights going out of the airport to the States. We rescheduled them for tomorrow afternoon, really hoping we make it home. So we're just going to try to make the most of it. I guess it's time to unpack our suitcases and get swimsuits on again. It sure doesn't sound like they're in distress, does it? Propane tanks have exploded, hoping the building doesn't catch on fire. Man, crazy. So basically, a ton of Californians are stuck in Mexico. It's not like they're hostage or anything. I saw a lot of, warmongering websites and politicians saying, "They've taken American hostages, Trump, we must act now." The roads are closed. This is like, imagine if there was let's say a British immigrant, not even an immigrant, a British visitor in Minneapolis, and then, Antifa does their thing, or Portland, could be Portland. There's a British visitor in one of those cities prone to Antifa violence. Antifa does their thing, like the little retards they are. And then roads are closed, airports closed. What if Britain and... Would the right response be for the UK to declare war on us? Would the right response be for the UK to invade? To get their stranded citizen back? I get it's scary. You're in the middle of this fucking riot. It's cartel-related riot. Yes, the cartels are scary. But at the end of the day, it's not like a civil war. It's a riot. They're doing a lot of the same shit that our protesters do, just on a grander scale. Do we really need to bomb them? Assuming that's the plan that Lindsey Graham is advocating for here. Is that really what we need? Is that really what we need right now? I'm just asking. It's like, okay, Maduro, this is a guy that's pumping our country with really dangerous drugs, emptied his insane asylums and prisons into our country and is now refusing to take them back when we catch them, making threats toward us as we do our own business in that area now, training his own population to brace for potential war, and not to mention he's just a terrible person. He's a dictator. And you executed it with minimal civilian casualties. I think the number was like 40, and most of them were Maduro's own guards. Okay, kinda get it. I kinda get it. What's the excuse here? Like, these people aren't in distress. It's not like a war, it's a riot. And it stems from the Mexican military going after the cartel. If they took out the leader, surely they're equipped to handle this. Like, just how is this our business? I'm not even halfway convinced. I'm not a third of the way convinced. I don't even think I'm a quarter of the way convinced. Yeah, it sucks that there's Americans stranded there. But I mean, apply the same logic the other way around, and it sounds crazy. Imagine the UK invading us because a British citizen got stranded in a BLM riot or something. Imagine fucking Japan bombing us because a Japanese visitor got hit in the crossfire, brick on the head or something during a Antifa protest. Even if there's no injury, there's no evidence that any of these Americans are injured. There's no evidence that they're being taken hostage. They're being held against their will or anything. They're just stranded because the airports aren't open, or the roads are closed, or like, holy shit, there's a fire in the area, stay on lockdown. Look, it sucks, but at the same time, Lindsey Graham, shut the fuck up. The U.S. State Department on Sunday urged Americans to shelter in place in the city, and reports from across the west of the country said more violence was flaring up in other Mexican states. Local media suggested Baja California, Guanajuato, I'm not even going to try to pronounce all these, I'm going to fail. They were all experiencing dangerous cartel-related activity. Yes, many Mexican states, cities, whatever. There's tourists. There's our tourists. These are our guys. Just watching the smoke. Again, doesn't look like they're in any trouble. Just noticing. As panic spread throughout the region, reports surfaced of gunfire at the Guadalajara International Airport, with one video posted online showing what appeared to be passengers running for shelter. Mexican forces took out drug kingpin Oseguera Cervantes, 53, on Sunday morning in the town of Tapalpa in Jalisco. It quickly sparked a violent uprising by cartel gangs, with the brunt of their anger taken out on the Paradise Beach enclave of Puerto Vallarta. Oseguera Cervantes was living illegally in California during the 1990s and spent 3 years in a U.S. prison for conspiracy to distribute heroin. He was later deported to Mexico. What do you know? The Golden State is the main route for drugs such as fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine to flow into the country from the cartel. Yep, good old California. I hate that state. Again, just imagine this the other way around, and it doesn't make any sense. Trump goes after the head of Antifa, like a Rose City Antifa, right? That'd be nice. Trump goes after the head of Rose City Antifa. Antifa does their gay shit. So in response, let's say the Canadian military comes in, kills a bunch of Antifa agents, bombs part of the city, citizens caught in the crossfire, God knows how many. Would you say thank you to Canada? I mean, yeah, I don't like Antifa, but we don't need your help, Canada. Please butt out. I'll say the same thing if there was an Antifa. Actually, there is an Antifa equivalent. It's Antifa in Canada. Same thing in Canada. Antifa takes over a small town, makes their own gay Chaz again. Trump decides he's going to send in Minnesota National Guard to neutralize, this Canadian town. It doesn't make sense. It's not necessary. Fuck off. They didn't even ask for it. You're just increasing the risks. It's unnecessary risk, and not only to our own soldiers, but to citizens there. Let Mexico handle Mexico's business. I don't want to be stranded in a foreign country while there's a riot going on just outside my hotel. I get stressed out being in a hotel, period, because it's not home. Much less if there's chaos going on outside. At the same time, I don't expect the US military to come bomb the shit out of this allied country for me. This is insane. This is insane thinking. We just expose this giant ring of elites, of world powers, that are caught up in this major corruption, major satanic PDF file ring. Now suddenly, we got this chaos in Mexico, and Lindsey Graham and Trump really want us to pay attention to that. Holy crap, American intervention must be necessary. Would you say that about the cartel violence that's been going on for the past, 20 years? Would you say that for the cartel violence that has actually killed Americans before? No? Not just in our country. That's one thing. If it's the cartels doing shit in our country, yeah, get angry over that, deport them. I get that. I mean, Americans that were in Mexico, kidnapped, trafficked, enslaved, killed, burned to death, disappeared even, by the cartels. Yeah, that's happened before. I don't think the US military got involved then. It's really sad, it's really tragic. I am not convinced that US intervention is necessary here. It would take a lot for me to change my mind. This is my last story that I have for the day. Higby is reporting California government paying protesters over $100 million. A thing that never happened again, guys. I have discovered that the state of California is using taxpayer funds to subsidize non-profit organizations whose core function is to organize protests. Chirla has taken over $100 million alone in taxpayer funds, according to the state expenditure website, to advance the human and civil rights of immigrants and refugees. Sure looks like a protest organization. Based on their website, Chirla's primary function is protest-related activities and left-wing advocacy. What do you know? They have been protesting and advocating since 1986 and take credit for some of Newsom's policies. You can look at this right now. This is on California's own record. California is genuinely one of the most corrupt states in this country, I can tell you that. Not just because of Hollywood and the tech bros. There's always, and the health insurance, a lot of major health insurance companies there. There's all sorts of corruption there. As far as government cop-outs, blackmail, a whole bunch of crazy shit goes on in those areas, in those high-profile areas. But even beyond that, it is a corrupt hellhole. There is layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of bureaucracy. Each one, in some way or another, is just scraping off the top. Hundreds of millions of dollars will go pumped nonstop into these failed programs, like the homeless program and stuff. And somehow homelessness gets worse, health insurance gets worse, everything gets worse in the city. Sanitation gets worse. All these programs are still going, and everything is getting worse. The drug problem, getting worse. That's in part because of the Mexican gangs, but also they're not helping it. And then you hear stories like, oh, another bureaucrat found taking millions from this homelessness program. It happens all the time. They're all doing it. There's a reason. First of all, just throwing money at the issue is not going to help a lot. Like, for example, the homelessness crisis. You can throw money at the problem, but there is a mental health aspect to that not working. There's a societal sickness there that is, like, some of them say it's genuinely because the benefits California offers them, like the soup kitchens and stuff, right? You will get more benefits living on the streets than living in a little apartment, which is kind of sad, really. Others, they're just so coked out of their brain, they don't know any better, right? I had a family member, she pretty much just moved all along the West Coast, pretty much. She comes from a very abusive situation that involved methamphetamine, brain fried, she's schizophrenic, and instead of actually helping the mental health issue that's keeping her on the streets crazy, because she just wants the drugs, she wants that street life. Instead of addressing that issue, they just the cops pick her up one day, she gets released, and she's back on the streets God knows where. Disappears. She's doing better now. But still, you can throw money at the issue. You can say, here, we'll give you a shelter. Here, we'll give you this food. Here, we'll give you so much XYZ. That's still not going to... Most of them are just going to go back to the streets. But it's also not helping that these programs, on top of just not working because they're just throwing money at the issue, it's also not helping because they're corrupt as shit and people are taking money into their own pockets. There's a reason that the government made it absolute bureaucratic hell, pretty much impossible for, like, Paradise, people who lost their homes in Paradise or the Palisades. There's a reason that they made it impossible to rebuild. It wasn't the bullshit environmental laws that, in part, led to that place being such a fire hazard to begin with. It's also because, what do you know, the California government just recently reclaimed that area because the people themselves couldn't build on it, they just had to give it up. Well, now the California government gets in, they're going to use it to build low-income housing, quote-unquote. That's so much environmentally better, right? California has such a reputation as being like the green state, right? It is genuinely one of the most environmentally unfriendly states in the entire country. You get what I'm saying, right? California is extremely corrupt, and it's very easy to see. Unfortunately, it is also one of the bluest states in the entire country, and good luck voting out any of these policies. Chirla's website and social media are flooded with photos and videos of their ranks protesting for an array of causes such as BLM, DACA, anti-ICE, Medicare, and healthcare for all. What do you know? On their website, Chirla admits that they engage in electioneering through GovT. Direct credit for Newsom's $175 million COVID relief aid. If federal or state funds were used for electioneering, this may be a serious crime. There's no way of telling whether this occurred without looking at their books. Much more to come. This is one of dozens. I will continue releasing. Follow to see the rest. Yes, please give Cam Higby a follow. This is major, right? It was a conspiracy that protesters were being paid. And sure, not all of them. A lot of those TARs just show up on their own accord. Granted, crazy finds crazy, blind leads the blind. Happens all the time. Like, the existence of protesters that aren't paid doesn't erase the possibility of ones that are. And we have seen a lot of instances where protesters admit, I'm getting paid by being here. We see so many clueless people have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like a lady who's protesting for Palestine, she's like, I don't even know what Palestine is, but blah, 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 blah. Aren't we protesting for the Jews because we're protesting for Palestine? She thought Palestine was a Jewish state. These people don't know anything. Why are they on the streets? Why are they so mad about this? There has to be another incentive, right? Maybe they just joined because they're dumb blonde women and they want to be part of the crowd. I wouldn't be shocked with that. But also, I wouldn't be shocked if they were getting paid. Please do follow Cam Higby. Follow this story. I feel like this is going to explode. I know it feels like forever ago that Nick Shirley exposed the potential fraud, if not blatant fraud, going on in Minneapolis, and now we actually have Minneapolis daycares closing up. Now we actually have them fleeing. And I don't know how the investigation against Tim Walz or Ilhan Omar is going. I'll have to check in on that. I've been absolutely engulfed with the Epstein files, not to mention all the ICE protests and stuff. That conveniently seems to have disappeared. Another story about politician corruption conveniently disappeared. This is great. And if we can expose California's corruption, that is major. That is a major victory. Do Portland next, by the way. Yeah, I will tell you from inside experience, this state is a hotbed for corruption. You just have to know where to look. Anyway, that is my final story for today, and that's all I got. I got a lot to edit, don't I? Yeah, I did a lot of rambling. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I don't care if you want to troll me, but please be respectful toward each other. And hopefully I will see you in another video soon, right? My friends, my spectators, thank you for watching, and farewell.